People are really skeptical of the Bachelor producers. They think that they kind of, are pulling the strings and this and that. It's interesting that we've already found out that they don't really swap information with the lead's producer. If the lead says to his producer, like, let's go with Colton from last season, it's Cassie, I know it's Cassie, it's been 2 weeks and already, she's the one for me. They have a show that they have to continue on. So what do they do in that case?
Well, that's when it's really great that his producer isn't really talking to the other producers, right, about all of this stuff. And that happens. That does happen. I know for a fact, like afterwards, that happens a lot of times, right? Like there's no way that one person is interested in every single person on the show. They already have at least their top 5 favorites from pretty much the beginning.
Yeah.
And yet the cool thing is, it's like sometimes even when that happens, there can be changes in how they feel about somebody after like maybe a one-on-one date with that person.
Okay.
I've never been actually that person's producer, like the main person's producer, but I would say that that person would probably say like, keep an open mind because you don't know. And you want to give all of these women a chance to actually get to know you before you really make that final declaration.
Let's take it week by week. So in 1 week, the Bachelor or Bachelorette is going to go on, let's say, one-on-one, 2-on-1, which they don't really do much of anymore, and then a group date, right? Or something like that. So during the downtime for everyone else, when they're not doing that, what are they doing? And is there absolutely no devices allowed?
Right, no devices. That's the thing, right? And that's why, like, when people ask me, like, is it scripted? I'm like, no, we don't have to script anything. Because if you think about it, it's like we take away every single thing from your life. Like, you have no phone. There are no radios, no TVs,
radios,
no magazines, no books.
No wonder they all go a little crazy.
They can't even read?
No outside stuff, basically. So you're in a bubble, right? You're in this bubble, so it's very easy to just sort of like live in that bubble and talk about the things that you want to talk about, become friends with the people if you want to become friends with them, because the ones who do end up having friendships, they're friends for life because they're going to bond over this one experience, right? Not that many people have gone through this experience with them. And then the people that they don't like, they're going to really not like them, and like tensions are going to come up, especially if you're fighting over the same person, right, to date.
Oh my God, that's just a recipe for just cuckoo bananas.
It is. And to be so obsessed, and that makes sense of how it can be such a fast process compared to normal life. Because they're so focused, that's all they have to think about.
You do get to know people like on these dates very, very well. So it's like the process that people think it's like, oh, it's so fast. Yeah, it's fast, but you're spending a lot of time, because if you're like going on a real date in the real world, you may go and have dinner with somebody for like 2 hours, and then you're not going to see them for a week, right? Here, it's like you're going on a date with somebody and you're going to go on that date for like 5 to 8 hours. And then you're going to see them again the next week. Like you're going to see them again, like not even just the next week, but like, all the time, basically.
Okay, so from your perspective, it's not that odd that some of these relationships actually do turn into real relationships quickly.
Right. It's not that odd. Yeah. Especially on the Bachelorette side, because I really do think that the women are very much more intuitive and good at figuring out, like, okay, can I see my life with this person?
Well, Hannah isn't really good at that so far, but we'll see. So we have some subscriber questions straight from the peeps here. You want to start?
Sure. All right, so this is from Katy D. What is the most awkward group date you have ever seen? And her example she gives is Desiree's Soulja Boy music video.
That's so funny. I was there. Yes, yeah. I can't see beyond Soulja Boy showing up probably 3 hours late and drunk. And me spending I don't know, at least an hour trying to wake him up out of his dressing room.
Oh, so that's just a bad memory for you. Not awkward, just hell on earth.
Yeah. And Soulja Boy lost his phone in the pool that day too, so then he was really upset. Overall, it just was not a good day.
Giza B wants to know, how much time is actually recorded per day? Do they get any camera-free moments? And do they sleep in separate rooms so that they cannot talk to one another at night?
They do not sleep in separate rooms. Okay. There are separate rooms, but it's there'll be 3, 4, 5, people in one room, basically. Or, sometimes in hotel rooms, it's kind of you can only fit maybe 2 or 3 people in a room. So, and then the times that we film pretty much as soon as they wake up, and then we stop filming when they all want to go to bed. Okay. Actually, I probably shouldn't even say that, because then they're probably now all the contestants are going to know that, and they're going to try to pretend to go to bed early.
Exactly. Then get up and party, get in fights.
But there's usually assistants, PAs or production assistants or handlers who stay with them overnight, so in case something big happens, if they decided to wake up and start a huge fight, that there's a way to call in cameras and that kind of thing too. How
strict are the rules after the show? Brandon M gives the example of, I noticed Jed was at the CMA Fest this year, as was Hannah. Would they be allowed to say hello if they ran into each other in public, or would that be a big no-no since the season's still going?
They can definitely say hi to each other and all that kind of stuff. They sign pretty strict, everybody signs really, really strict NDAs, right? The non-disclosure agreements. And in those non-disclosure agreements, there's you get fined pretty heavily for talking about the show or about your involvement in the show, or who ends up with whom, that kind of thing. Although I know that with Reality Steve and those kinds of things, it's people find out, it happens.
Who is feeding him the information?
We don't know.
Really?
It's really crazy. One season, I remember Mike Fleiss had some investigators come in to investigate everybody. All the producers had to go through an investigation process, and we were all interviewed just to see who may be leaking information. And I really think it's the contestants more than anything, because once they leave, it's easy for people to be oh, I spotted so-and-so, they've already gone home, so they must not be on the show anymore. And then that person can tell, I don't know, somebody that they were on such and such date and in whatever location. There's that. And then we used to also think that maybe there was somebody in the promos department at ABC.
Yeah, or something, because it's been the whole time pretty much. And he continues to get information, and producers come and go. I'm sure there are some that have been there the whole time, but it's there's a mole somewhere in that production.
Yes, there is.
Well, Varun R. and also my friend Goober want to know, how close is the show to Unreal? You know that show Unreal?
Yeah.
About the fakeness of the reality stuff. How close are they, if you're familiar with it?
I have never seen an episode. I get asked all the time about how close it is to Unreal. Somebody asked me, is it true you get paid for making people cry? Because apparently in Unreal they pay the producers to make people cry. and that's not true. I always joke that making people cry is just part of the job. You don't get any extra money for doing that.
Thank God. But you get to keep your job and maybe get a promotion the next year.
ED or Ed, we'll go with Ed. Do producers ever go to the Bachelor or Bachelorette to express their concerns about the contestants?
Your intention as a producer wasn't also to be like looking for the bad apples, so that you're not going and saying to the Bachelor or Bachelorette, like, even if we did have the opportunity to talk to them, which we didn't, but if we did, we wouldn't be like, oh, so-and-so's terrible and you shouldn't date this person, because we also have bonded with some of them too, right? I mean, like you said, like Juan Pablo, before he became the Bachelor, he was one of my guys, like one of the people I produced. And did I ever think like he was gonna be the kind of Bachelor, you know, like I didn't even think he was going to be the Bachelor. I mean, who knew that was going to happen? Yeah. But I never ever thought like, oh, he's kind of a bad guy, or he really wants to be famous. Like I never really got that from the very first season.
Okay, let's go back to our little teased question here. Who was your least favorite?
Ooh, this is a tricky one.
Throw him under the bus, it's fine.
Okay, I'm not a huge fan of Casey, who was on Allie's season. The one who got a tattoo.
The Kermit voice.
She always talks about how he says, what did he say?
Have a guard and protect your heart.
Yeah. Okay, why? Was it because he's a phony, or why do you not like him?
Yeah, I felt like on Allie's season, he was this like super sweet, like just like very soft, you know, softy kind of guy, right? Got the tattoo and everything. And then as soon as he started dating Vienna, it was like, I don't know, he turned into kind of a jerk. My husband and I met working on that show. So, like,
I forgot that you met working on that show.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So did you meet on Jake's season?
Yes. Okay. He actually had worked on the show 2 seasons before I started. We were in St. Lucia, you know. I mean, that's the amazing part about this show, right? It's like you're in super romantic locations. It's almost inevitable people are going to fall in love.
This season they've gone to Rhode Island. Do you think it would have been the same with you and your husband if you, instead of St. Lucia, if you would have gone to Rhode Island?
Yeah, that would have been totally different.
Yeah. No.
But it's actually a life-changing show for me, because we fell in love behind the scenes.
Yeah, you accepted his rose, or he accepted yours. I don't know.
Were you working on the show when the producer got with the contestant and he jumped the balcony?
Yeah, I know who that was. Yeah, that was my first season. Oh. That was my very first season. I could not believe it. I remember I remember sitting on a couch with them, with that producer and then the contestant, and they were very, very affectionate. And I felt very uncomfortable, like I was a third wheel sitting there. And then I left, and I was thinking to myself, is this how they produce people on the show? I had been a producer for quite a while now. Like, you know, I had never encountered producing like that. And then I went upstairs in the Bachelor Mansion. I went to go and then all the girls were on the bathroom floor, sitting there on the bathroom floor, talking about it, how they thought it was really weird that producer and that girl were so close. And then they noticed some really strange things. And so I ended up telling another producer who had been on the show a little bit longer. And then he was like, oh yeah, like we'll take care of it or something like that. And then the next day we all got called in early. And it was like a really scary meeting. Like the executive producer was like, he said, just in case you are unclear, you are not to sleep with the contestants. That's a no-no. And then second of all, that producer, we fired him. And then tonight, Chris Harrison's going to tell the girl that she's off the show.
Are there any other stories that you just are like, you know what, you guys need to know this? Because this happened and it was incredible.
With Gia, who, you know, I'll say that, you know, out of all the people who've been on the show who wasn't a Bachelor, Bachelorette, she's probably like my all-time, I can say she's on my all-time favorite, because like we had a very close bond, and then of course she passed away, and it was, you know, very devastating to me and to all, you know, all the producers who were on the show. And I'll just always remember there was a moment where we were shooting in Napa, and we stayed overnight, and they wanted me to stay with them. That was because there were no cameras or, you know, any producers, and then the Bachelor was going to be just like down the hall and stuff. So like Jake was going to be down the hall. So we didn't want them to kind of like sneak into each other's rooms or anything. So I was in there, and it was a 2-on-1 date, and it was Vienna and Gia. And for some reason that 2-on-1 date, they didn't like eliminate anyone.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I don't think he was ready, or something happened. So both of them stayed. And so we were sleeping in the room. Vienna was in another bed. Gia and I were in one bed, and we were like just talking and laughing, and then Vienna falls asleep, and I don't know if she's gonna like me saying this, but she was snoring.
Of course she was, that bitch.
And then Gia and I were just like, oh my gosh, like we got to get her to stop snoring. We're never going to fall asleep. So she throws a pillow at Vienna, and then she yells out, yo, Darth Vader. Shut up. In like her New York accent too, you know, which is even better than how I'm saying it.
Well, obviously, I know you're doing the financial mentoring and financial coaching now. Would you ever go back to Bachelor?
No, I don't think so. Yeah, it's got to be something else that's probably like a much more of a challenge. And, you know, because I was doing that for a very long time, and I would still probably have done it if I was in my 20s, you know, because it's a really fun show to work on, especially if you're not married and you don't have kids or whatever, right? Because you know, you're traveling all the time. I was traveling 6 months out of the year.
So few people have had this experience that you've had. I just think it's the coolest thing. I mean, obviously, so does everyone else. That's why they're always badgering you with questions. Yeah. But it's so interesting.
Yeah, it's a whole world, and I get it, you know, and like I said, because I met my husband working on the show, I definitely have a soft spot for it, and, you know, and we'll always be grateful to the show because it introduced us. All right.
Bye.
Oh, wait, Whitney, when are you due?
July.
July?
Yeah.
Wow.
Katy.
You don't look that big for July.
Katy.
Oh,
let me get a better view for her.
Wow.
See this thing.
It's huge.
Oh my God. I should have been still recording that, but I had to.
Thank the Lord.